Hello everyone. Once again, welcome to the Genius Science Academy. Today we are going to discuss about the metals and the non-metals related to the 10th class here. Let's start the class without wasting the time. Okay, first of all we see the definition of the metal. Definition of a metal says that a type of a solid substances that is usually hard and shiny, and that heat and electricity can travel through them. It means these are the hard substances and the shiny substances which allow the heat and electricity to pass through them. It is known as the metal here. For example, iron, aluminium and copper, you can take the example. Second, that is the physical properties of a metal. It is the physical property of the metal as well as they are the chemical properties of the metal. You can take here the physical property of the metal. We can say that these are the hard, they have the shiny with the definite shape, with the high melting point and a good conductor of electricity, good conductor of a heat, high density, malleable and ductile. These are the properties of a metals here. Next, if we see the definition of the non-metal, a chemical element. Listen carefully or see carefully. A chemical element such as boron, carbon, nitrogen that lacks the characteristics of the metal. It means you can say that the substances which does not possess the characteristics of a metal, they are known as the non-metal. For example, sulfur, iodine and oxygen. These are the example for the non-metal. If we see the properties of the non-metal, non-metals can't be hammered into thin sheet. As you know that we can hammer the metals to give the different shape and the sizes. But we can't hammer the non-metal to give the different size or the different shapes, or we can turn it in the sheets. And second properties of the non-metals, non-metals are not ductile. Non-metals are the poor conductor of heat and electricity. Non-metals are the luster, which means they do not shine. Non-metals do not shine. And the non-metals having the low tensile strength, it means density, we can say that. And the non-metals are not sonorous, and the non-metals are very soft in the nature. These are the properties of non-metals. If we see the chemical properties of the metals, they are having the high density usually, and the metals are malleable and ductile. We can hammer them and give the different sheet, and we can turn into the single rod also. And the metals form an alloy. It means by mixing with the different substances, we can produce the metal alloys, like we say the copper alloy, silver alloy, gold alloy, copper alloy, aluminium alloy. These you can take as an example. Are the non-metals, we can mix them with the non-metals to produce alloys. Okay, the some metals react with air as well as the corrode, and the metals are good conductor of heat and electricity. Previously we discussed about this point. Generally metals are in the solid state at the room temperature. Okay, usually we can say the rods here, we can say behind me there are the grill made up of the metal. There are in the hardened state, or we can say it in the solid state in the room temperature. Let us see what happens when a metal burn in the air. You will see here in the word reaction that when the metal combines with the oxygen to form the metal oxide. It means metal, when react with oxygen, they produce the metal oxide. For example, magnesium is a metal. When it is react with the oxygen, they produce the magnesium oxide. Copper, it is also a metal. When it react with oxygen, they produce the copper oxide. Iron, remember the symbol of these elements, you have to remember carefully. Iron, when react with oxygen, they produce the iron oxide. These are the reaction when the metals burn in the presence of air or with the oxygen. They produce the metal oxide. Whenever the metal react with the oxygen, they produce the metal oxide. Let us see what happens when the metal react with the water. Metal react with the water and produce a metal oxide and hydrogen gas. So whenever the metal react with the water, they produce the metal oxide and produce the hydrogen gas. As you can see in the picture here, the glass wool soaked in the water placed in the one horizontal test tube with the metal sample which is closed with the one hole rubber cork, and the delivery tube is delivered in the water container jar, and the one test tube is inwardly placed in the delivery tube here. Whenever you start to burn that the glass wool soaked in the water, it react with the metal placed in the test tube, and the gas is liberated, and the liberated gas is passed through the delivery tube and collected into the gas collected in the vertically placed test tube. That is, the gas is nothing but the hydrogen. It means the metal oxide, that also it means metal oxide. Whenever the metal react with the water, they produce the metal oxide. That metal oxide further soluble in water or dissolve in the water to form the metal hydroxide. You can see in the word reaction, metal react with the water to produce the metal oxide and the hydrogen gas. And the metal oxide, further the metal oxide dissolve in the water to form the metal hydroxide. Remember that this is the very important point here, may be asked in the exam. And next we see that the metal like potassium and the sodium react violently in the cold water. It means whenever, or in the case of sodium and the potassium, reaction is so violently and exothermic that even the hydrogen gas immediately catches the fire. It means that whenever the potassium react with the water, it produces the potassium hydroxide and liberate the hydrogen gas, which catches the immediate fire and it liberate the heat energy. And second reaction, if you see the sodium react with the water, then the sodium hydroxide is formed and the hydrogen gas is liberated and the heat energy is also liberated. It means these are the exothermic reaction. Exothermic reaction are the reaction where the heat is released in the product section, we can say, or the heat is released whenever the reaction take place, right? This is the exothermic reaction. Second thing, reaction of the metals with the acid. When a metal react with an acid, the product are the salt and the hydrogen gas. Whenever the metal react with the other acids, they produce the salt and the hydrogen gas. Metal plus acid to form the salt and the hydrogen. Remember one point is here, the salt produced, it is depend upon the metal, type of a metal and the type of a acid involved here. It means the salt whichever is produced after the reaction, that is totally depend upon the type of a metal as well as the type of a acid. For example, when metal react with hydrochloric acid, they produce the metal oxides, right? Sorry, metal chloride. Whenever the metal react with hydrochloric acid, they produce the metal chloride. When a metal react with sulfuric acid, the salt produced is the metal sulfate. And the third point, the metal react with nitric acid, the salt produced is metal nitrate. It means totally salt depend upon the type of metals and the type of acid involved in the reaction. Let us see the what happen when the metal and non-metal react with each other. Okay, first point, see carefully and listen carefully. A metal and a non-metal react in a combination reaction. It means whenever the non-metal and the metal make a reaction, the reaction is nothing but that is the combination reaction to give a binary ionic compound. It means the product is binary ionic compound. You can see in the word reaction, that is the metal plus non-metal to give out the binary ionic compound. For example, sodium react with chlorine gas to produce the sodium chloride. In the reaction, you can see that the Na means sodium plus Cl2 means chlorine gas. Whenever they react with each other to give the sodium chloride. Here you can see that the sodium having the plus ions and the chlorine having the minus ions. We can say that is the binary ionic reaction. Here it is not represented. And when a main group of a metal react with a non-metal, the formula of the ionic compound is predictable. Listen carefully. When a main group metal react, it means when the metal react with the non-metal, the formula of the ionic compound is predictable. We can predict them. If the compound containing the transition metals, the formula is not predictable. We can't predict them like the product will be formed like this, etc. Okay. Next point, if we see the chapter belongs to the metals and the non-metals, we must know the extraction of a metal. How the extraction of metal take place? First of all, remember that the metal, whatever we get, that is purified in the industries. Okay, the metal is obtained in the form of ore. The concentration of ore. It means ore means it is the combination of a lot of the impurities. Here, metal of we see the three type of metals here. Metal of high reactively, metal of medium reactively, actively, and the metal of a medium reactively, and the third one is the metal of a least reactively. If we see the first column of this flow chart, metal of high reactively, that is purified by the electrolysis of the melton ore. After that we get the pure metal. In the second column, if you see that metal of the medium reactively, that can be purified the carbonate ore and the sulfide ore. And in the carbonate ore, that is the purified by the calination, and the sulfide ore is purified by the roasting. By both we can see that they produce the oxides of metals. Carbonate ore and sulfate ore, they both produced the oxides of metals, and again the oxides of the metals is the reduction of the metal, and we make them purify. After that we get the metal here. In third column, if we see the metal of the least reactively, the sulfide ore is present, and we are going to roasting them to get the metal, and the metal still containing the lot of the impurities. By the purification method we can get the pure method. This is the long process. There is the long explanation which I will going to explain you in the next period. Just only the extraction of a metal. Okay, just you go through the here flow chart. Next, enrichment of ore. This is the first point, or we can say that is the enrichment of ore, or that is the first step of the extraction of metal. We can say that as you know that the ores are mined from the earth crust. We get the ores from the earth crust, which contain or which is the large amount of impurities like the soil, sand, etc. That is called as the gangue. It means the ore which is obtained from the earth crust, that is known as the gangue. It means it contains a lot of the impurities like the mud, soil, sand, etc., etc., etc. The impurities must be removed from the ore. Firstly, pure means the meaning of the word of the pure is the first to the extraction of the metal. It means that we have to separate the impurities from the ore of a metal to get the pure metal. The process used here to remove the gangue from the ore, or here the process used to remove the impurities from the ore, are basis on the difference between the physical and the chemical properties of the gangue and the ore. We are not going to separate them directly. First, we are going to see the chemical properties and the physical properties of impurities present in the ore. And we are going to choose the particular method to separate the impurities from the ores. There are the lot of these methods to separate the impurities from the ore of the metal here. Different separation techniques we are going to use to remove the impurities from the ore of the metals here. Let us see the next point. In here we can discuss the electrolysis refining of a copper. Right? The electrolyte is a solution. In the picture you can see above figure, the electrolyte is the solution of the acidified copper sulfate. It means electrolytic solution. The vessel which contain the liquid in between the two rods, that is a electrolyte solution of acidified copper sulfate. That is the acidified copper sulfate is placed in the jar. The anode is impure copper. Anode side, there you can see the below in the picture, there is the impurity is collected there near to the anode mud, near the anode rod, right? On passing the electric current, pure copper is deposited on the cathode. On the left hand side you can say the cathode rod. Whenever you pass the electricity through them, two rods, one is the anode, another one is the cathode, the impurity is totally connected towards the anode and pure copper is collected towards the cathode. This is the one type of a separation or the purification of the metal. Why? Because the copper is also the one type of a metal. Here to separate, to get the pure copper, we use the electrolytic refining process, where we get the pure copper towards the cathode rod here. I hope you people are enjoying this class. Next point is the corrosion. Corrosion is the one type of rusting we can say here. Generally, corrosion occurs when the most or all of the atoms on the same metal surface are oxidized. If you take the rod, if you take the metal, if you take the copper, whenever it was exposed to the atmosphere for the long time, they start to produce the same metal oxides. They produce the copper oxide, iron produce the iron oxide, magnesium produce the magnesium oxide, potassium produce the potassium oxide, and the oxide which is produced on the surface of that metals, they damage totally. It means they damage the metal which they formed. The most of metals are easily oxidized. Lot of the metals are easily oxidized here. They tend to lose the electron. It means the corrosion means they lose the electrons to the oxygen and other substances present in the air. They give up. They lost their electron to oxygen and other substances present in the air. Whenever you place the rod or the copper in the atmosphere for long time, they start to produce the oxide of the copper oxide. It means they lose the electrons to the oxygen present in the air or other substances present in the air. Oxygen is reduced or the gain electrons. It means the oxygen which get the electron from that metal placed in the atmosphere, it form an oxide with the metals. Just I told you the example, if you place the copper in the atmosphere for the long time, it produce the copper oxide. It means they lose the electron, oxygen gain the electron from the copper here. This is known as the corrosion here. What we to take the steps to prevent the corrosion here, or the protective measures against the corrosion? First of all, that is the metallic coating. That is electropainting. You are very familiar to this process. Why? Because a lot of the things we are using the electropainting substances in our day-to-day life. For example, that you use the lock in your homes for the door, that is electropainted. A coating of a metal is deposited on the base of a metal by passing direct current through the electrolytic solution. By this is the process by which they paint the metals here. Second one is the metal cladding. The base metal to be protected and coating metals are sandwiched by the pressing them roller around the action of a heat and the pressure. It means this is also one type of the coating process. Here the coating process is done by the pressure as well as the heat. This is the second method to prevent the corrosion. Third one is the hot dipping. We can say that the base metal to be coated in emerged in the bath of the melt-on coating metal. Here we are going to dip the substances in the melt-on metal to coat the different metals here. And third one is the cementation. We can the cementation, that is uniform surface coating to obtain by the heating the base metal in a power of a coating metal. This is also one type of a prevention method. Metal spraying. The coating of a metal in the melt-on state. Just we are going to spray the melt-on spraying is sprayed on the basis of metal by means the spraying gun. We use the spraying gun to prevent the corrosion. We are going to use the paints as well as to prevent the corrosions. We are going to use a lot of the lubricants to prevent the corrosions. These all are the preventive measures against the corrosion. I hope you people are understood this class, and I hope people you are enjoyed here lot of the things. Okay, let us. Okay, thank you very much to listening my class. Thank you very much to be in my class, and please subscribe, share, and invite all your friends and your classmates to this channel. Thank you very much.